Hi, I'm Tony Kent, and this is episode 12, the belated episode 12 of Tony Kent Writes and Chats. Why is it belated? Well, simple reason is this. The last episode was on the 16th of April when we launched PowerPlay, and today it's 27th of April, so we're 11 days down the line. And I have to admit, which again is a hard thing to admit on a show, that it's all about documenting the writing of book 4 from the one-line idea through to publication, is that I've done absolutely no writing in that time. No direct writing. I have today. I've been at the laptop today. I'm back at work. But in the 10 days in between launch and today, there has been no writing done. And I have to admit that. Well, why is that? I could just moan about it. I could just sit here and just say, well, I'm very, very sorry and very embarrassed. But actually, it's probably a good thing to talk about today, because it again is part of the writing process. And in two ways, really. First, in terms of thinking time. Ultimately, you do need thinking time when writing a book. And as you know, I sat down with a one-line idea and just got going. And as you know, that's not the way I normally write. I've explained all of this before. So therefore, there always is thinking time in the way that I operate. And I think that week or 10 days was really necessary now to give me thinking time, because I have now been able to really cement and clarify some ideas that were a bit nebulous. I've worked out exactly what the bad guy's agenda is. I know what the overall arc really of the whole of the main plot now is. There'll be plenty of small things that come in, and there could be changes in the big thing. But I've got a much better idea now, I think, after a few days of thinking, after a week or so of thinking, than I had when I was sitting down and plodding on every day. And I think that's quite important. I think we'll make faster progress because of that. Because I do think I wasn't making quite the speed of progress that I normally make. But there could be any number of reasons for that, such as we're all locked where we're locked for the foreseeable future. But there was another reason, the other reason for the delay. Well, that reason really was what I thought I would talk about today in the main, which is a problem that you experience once you have a publishing contract. Well, we all know of all the problems that exist in trying to get a publishing contract. We all know how difficult that is, and if people want me to, we can talk about that on a different episode. But a lot of people ask questions about that, and a lot of people know what the problems are and have experienced the problems of getting a publishing contract. Well, the reality is, problems don't stop there. Problems carry on, and each new circumstance creates problems of their own. And what I didn't realise when I was writing Killer Intent or Marked for Death was, once I had a publishing contract, well, then you're on a conveyor belt. Now, it may be a wonderful conveyor belt. It's a conveyor belt we all want to be on, and I'm not complaining for a second about this, but it's still a conveyor belt. There are dates ahead, and you have to hit those dates, and you have to have books ready for those dates. And the reality of this is, it isn't just about the deadline of when you write the next book. There are other commitments based upon your other books, and the more books you write and the more items there are on the conveyor belt, well, then the more different responsibilities you have. So, for example, last week we released PowerPlay. At the same time, there's a bit of work going on in terms of Marked for Death in Sweden and in Germany, where it's about to be released, and in Italy. It's about to be released in all those countries in the next little while. And so there's work to be done there, and I have to work and turn my head onto the Marked for Death plot as well. And then Killer Intent. Killer Intent is going to be coming out soon in Poland and Russia, and I've got to look in terms of that book. So I'm looking at 3 different books. 2 of them I'm trying to remember from back when I dealt with them previously, and when I wrote them and promoted them, etc., etc. And I lived and breathed these books, but it was a while ago. PowerPlay, I had to launch, and as I'm sure you're aware from watching this, I did quite a lot of my own launch efforts with PowerPlay, because, as we know, we're all locked in. We can't go out. We have no railway stations, no WH Smith travel. There's no open Waterstones. This is a completely unique circumstance that none of us have been through before, and like every other author in that situation, I had to push myself to new ends and to new levels in terms of promoting PowerPlay and trying to make the best of a bad situation. And that included a 1.5 hour just me to camera launch last week. And in order to pull these things off, I had to completely immerse myself again in power play, in the plot and in the character twists and the developments and everything that happened, and even where it falls in the sequence of books and where Michael and Sarah and Joe are at this point compared to this point and this point and the next one. And so the result of that is that I completely immersed myself in power play. I was slightly immersed also in Marked for Death and Killer Intent for other reasons. And I discovered that when you're doing that, it then, for me, may not be the same way for anyone else, but it kind of became impossible to then just switch back on to book 4. And it gave me that thinking time that I've spoken about, and that was very, very beneficial. But even if it hadn't done that, I don't think I could have switched on that quickly. I think I may have found my level in terms of just how much I can flip between different books. And it's a bit like what I do for a living in my day job. You know, I'll be defending somebody one day in the Old Bailey for a very serious charge. I may then have to nip off from that before the trial's even over, leave someone else to cover it while I go and do a sentence in a different case, and then maybe leave the courtroom at a different point in the trial to go and do a plea hearing or a case management hearing. And so you juggle between cases as a barrister. And so I don't find it hugely difficult to juggle between the books, usually. But last week, I think I hit my wall. I think I found my level, which was I couldn't completely immerse myself in power play. So the 1.5 hour live broadcast, the Instagram read along where I had to set questions every day for some great bloggers who were Instagramming, who were reading along on Instagram and then answering the questions. And hopefully if they're tuning in now, hello to you guys too. And there was just so much more than that. I mean, we were doing interviews with various newspapers, answering various questions about the writing process of various bloggers. Ultimately, so much to do on power play that I just couldn't get my head back in to book 4. Well, I say that. I couldn't get my head back into writing book 4. But what I was able to do, as I've already indicated, is I did a lot of thinking. And I think actually, I'm happy to say that 1 week, that 10 days of not sitting down and typing has had a big impact. And I think we now have a tighter story. I think I have a clearer idea of where we're going. I know exactly who's now going to be involved. I have a working title, which I'm not going to give you in case I get to keep it. Now, I've had working titles for all of these books, and none of them stuck. This one might, probably won't, and I'll tell you truthfully when the time comes whether it did or not. But I've got a working title, so in my head it's no longer book 4, and that does make a huge difference. It makes a huge difference that in my head now I can see a cover. I'm developing a tagline, I'm the hook, I'm thinking all these different things through, and it's becoming more and more real as the story itself becomes more and more clear and as the characters become more and more clearly defined. So I think it was a productive week. It's been a non-productive week for YouTube. I will be back on here on an almost daily basis moving forward. I don't think I could have come back on here daily just to say, well, I'm doing a lot of thinking, guys, but I can't really get out of book 3 at the moment. So I think I did the right thing by not putting up any more videos for a while. But we're back, and we're moving, and we're moving well. And I have to say I'm very happy with what I've achieved today.